You gave your whole life to others, raised a family, built a home, held on through loss and pain. And when the time came to rest, you thought a nursing home would be the answer, a safe place, a peaceful chapter. But for many seniors, it becomes something very different. Quiet loneliness, rushed care, a sense of fading. This video speaks from the heart, not to shame, but to reveal the quiet regrets many seniors carry inside nursing homes. If you or someone you love is considering the move, please hear these truths first. If you've ever felt alone, unheard, or invisible, please subscribe. This channel is a safe place for seniors to be seen, understood, and empowered. Like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might help someone else feel a little less alone today. Imagine waking up and realizing you no longer decide when you get out of bed. Not because your body can't, but because someone else decided your schedule for you. That's what many older adults quietly face in nursing homes. It often begins with small things. Breakfast is served at 7 a.m., even if your body prefers 9. Showers happen on assigned days, not when you feel sore or sweaty. And lights are turned off at a time set for everyone, not when your heart is ready to let the day go. These may seem like minor adjustments, but over time they begin to chip away at something very sacred, your sense of independence. Experts in geriatric psychology have observed that autonomy, the ability to make your own small daily choices, is directly tied to emotional well-being in older adults. Losing it doesn't just feel frustrating. It changes the way the brain responds to everyday life. When decisions are repeatedly made for someone, the mind slowly stops trying to make them. Doctors explain that this can lead to feelings of helplessness, fatigue, and even early signs of depression. It's not about being stubborn, it's about feeling human. Many seniors have shared that they entered a care facility hoping to feel safer and supported, only to realize they were being asked to follow a schedule that didn't reflect their natural rhythm. One woman explained how her morning walk, something that had anchored her emotionally for decades, was no longer part of her routine. Staff didn't discourage her intentionally, but the system just didn't have space for flexibility. Another man said he felt embarrassed asking for coffee in the evening because it wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about the dignity of choice. Studies show that when older adults lose control over daily routines, their stress levels rise. The body begins releasing more cortisol, the hormone linked to tension and poor sleep. This can cause increased inflammation, higher blood pressure, and a weakened immune response. So what seems like a harmless schedule shift can actually cause deep ripple effects in both mind and body. There's also the emotional toll that comes with feeling managed. Seniors in nursing homes are often spoken to with care, but rarely with the full respect given to someone still making their own choices. Some report being treated as patients, not people, being told what to do instead of being asked. And even though it's done with kindness, it leaves many feeling like passengers in their own lives. That quiet sense of being overlooked can be more painful than any medical issue they came in with. Doctors who specialize in elder care emphasize that control over little things, like what socks you wear, what chair you sit in, when you read your book, are not petty preferences. They're psychological anchors. They remind the brain that it still has agency, still has presence, still has purpose. When those are taken away, the brain slowly begins to withdraw from the world. And with that withdrawal comes loneliness, disorientation, and eventually, emotional decline. It's not always about rebellion. Many older adults are willing to adapt, but the regret sets in when they realize they adapted too much. They didn't speak up when their dinner time changed. They stayed silent when their hobby was removed from the weekly calendar. They thought it was just for a few days, until it became their new normal. That's when the grief comes. Not grief for a person, but for the quiet loss of self. If you or someone you love is facing the decision to move into a care facility, this is something to hold close. The need to protect the power of choice, even the tiniest ones. Because that power is tied to dignity, And dignity is not a luxury. It's a basic part of being alive. So today, if you still choose what time you sip your tea or what slippers you wear before bed, honor that. It may seem small, but it's not. It's a reminder that you're still here, still deciding, still you. And that matters more than most people realize. Somewhere along the journey, you stop being called by your name. You become the one in room 12, or the diabetic with mobility issues, or the hip replacement in the East Wing. It doesn't happen all at once, but slowly, little by little, the way people speak to you begins to change. You're no longer asked, "What would you like today?" Instead, you're told, "It's time for your pills," or "Let's get you cleaned up now." No one means harm, but the shift is real. And for many seniors in nursing homes, it's one of the hardest parts of adjusting. That quiet, painful feeling of being seen as a patient instead of a person. Doctors have long studied the emotional toll of institutional care, especially in older adults. Researchers explain that being viewed primarily through a medical lens, as a diagnosis, a treatment plan, a fall risk, has deep psychological consequences. It can make even the most resilient individuals feel invisible. The intention behind the care may be loving, but the experience of receiving it can sometimes feel cold, distant, and overly clinical. And that, for many seniors, becomes the very thing they regret most. The slow fading of their identity. When everything is scheduled around medications, procedures, or chart updates, the deeper parts of a person, their hobbies, opinions, humor, voice, can quietly get lost. One woman shared that after 3 months in a care home, no one had asked her about her garden. She had grown roses for 40 years, but all anyone spoke to her about was her arthritis and her blood pressure. Another man said he used to play music every day, but now no one even knew he had been a pianist. They only knew him as someone who needed help dressing. These may seem like small omissions, but they carry a heavy weight. Experts in elder care point out that identity is not a luxury in old age, it's a lifeline. When seniors feel seen, truly seen, their overall health improves. Mood, appetite, memory, even pain tolerance can shift when a person feels respected and understood. But when the focus is only on what's wrong, the illness, the weakness, the risk factors, it sends a quiet message. This is all you are now. And that message, repeated day after day, begins to wear down the soul. In many nursing homes, this experience is unintentional. Staff members work hard and care deeply, but they are often overburdened. With limited time and rigid routines, the personal touches can slip away. That's why it's so important to protect your sense of self, to speak up when you feel unseen, to remind people that behind every chart and checklist is a whole human life, with stories, preferences, beliefs, and emotions that still matter. Doctors who work with aging populations emphasize the importance of what they call person-centered care. This means care that honors your individuality, not just your symptoms. It means asking what music you enjoy before turning on a random station. It means remembering that your favorite color is blue. It means calling you by your name, not your condition. And above all, it means acknowledging your wisdom, your history, and your right to be treated with dignity, not managed like a task. Feeling like just a patient can also lead to emotional detachment. Some seniors begin to go quiet. They stop correcting people when their name is mispronounced. They stop asking for small preferences, like a favorite drink or pillow. They learn to shrink, to comply, to disappear. And while the body may be fed and bathed, the spirit begins to starve. That's the real heartbreak, not just the illness or the frailty, but the loss of connection to who you are. But there is hope. Many facilities are learning. More are training their teams to listen better, to slow down, to ask questions beyond the medical file. Families can help too, by advocating for their loved ones' preferences and reminding staff of the life that existed long before the room number. And you, as a senior, have every right to keep telling your story, every day, loudly if you must, because your name, your memories, your opinions, they still matter deeply. So today, hold on to what makes you you. Keep asking to wear your favorite sweater. Keep requesting that one song. Keep sharing the stories that shaped your life. Because you are not just a chart or a chair or a diagnosis. You are a person. And that truth deserves to be honored every single day. At first, the visits feel steady. A granddaughter brings flowers. A neighbor drops by with a joke. A son pops in after work with a quick hug. You smile, even through the adjustment. It's not your home, but at least your people are near. You count on that knock on the door. You wait for that familiar face, but slowly things change. The visits grow less frequent. Calls come less often. Birthdays are missed. Time moves on for them, but for you, it starts to stand still. Doctors and psychologists have studied this experience deeply. What they've found is heartbreaking. For many seniors in care homes, the greatest source of emotional pain isn't illness or disability, it's loneliness. And not just any loneliness, but the kind that grows when you start to feel forgotten. When you look at the clock and know no one's coming today. When a holiday passes and you sit in a room meant for celebrating, but the seat next to you stays empty. Experts explain that this kind of emotional abandonment isn't always intentional. Families are busy. Life pulls people in 1,000 directions. Some don't know what to say when they visit. Others assume the senior is doing fine if they don't complain. But even if there's no malice, the result is the same. A slow fading of connection, a silence that gets heavier with each day. This is why so many older adults regret entering a place where visiting becomes an option, not a given. At home, people drop in. You're still part of the rhythm of their lives. But in a nursing home, it's different. The distance isn't always physical, and it's emotional. You go from being the matriarch, the wise uncle, the trusted friend, to someone waiting for a door to open, for a voice you recognize, for someone to remember. Doctors have observed that the emotional toll of isolation can be just as dangerous as any disease. Studies show that seniors who feel abandoned experience more rapid cognitive decline. They're more prone to depression, sleep problems, and even immune system changes. And the hardest part? Many don't speak up. They don't want to be a burden. They smile and nod when someone finally calls. But inside, they feel a kind of quiet grief. The grief of being slowly erased from the lives they helped build. It's not just about the number of visits. It's about the feeling of mattering, of being remembered, of having someone care about what you ate for lunch or how your back feels today. And when that fades, it's more than disappointing. It's a deep emotional wound, one that lingers, far beyond the missed birthdays or unreturned messages. Experts in senior wellness encourage families to create routines. Simple, consistent check-ins, a video call every Sunday, a letter once a month, a calendar where the grandkids can take turns visiting. Because for someone in a care home, these aren't just gestures, they are lifelines. They remind you that your story is still being read, that your presence still matters. If you're a senior in this situation, know this. Your worth doesn't shrink just because others are distant. You still have value, wisdom, and love to give. And if you've been hurt by someone drifting away, it's okay to say so. Sometimes people don't realize the weight their absence carries, and sometimes they just need to be reminded. If someone hasn't visited in a while, reach out. Call them. Write a short letter. Tell them you miss them. It's not weakness, it's courage. Because connection goes both ways. And sometimes, all it takes is one brave step to bring someone back into your life. Also, consider inviting others in your new community to share moments. Other residents, staff members, visiting volunteers, these can become unexpected sources of warmth and companionship. No one replaces family. But building new bonds doesn't mean you've lost the old ones. It means you're choosing to keep your heart open. Doctors who specialize in geriatric care say that even one strong relationship can reduce feelings of abandonment. Just one voice saying, "You're not alone," can shift everything. So fight for those connections. Nurture them when they appear. And never stop believing that you deserve to be remembered, visited, spoken to, and loved. Because you do. Even when the phone stays silent, even when the door doesn't open, you are not forgotten. You are still needed. You are still loved. And the people who care for you, whether from near or far, need to be reminded that you're still here, still waiting, still hoping, still deserving. So today, don't let silence write your story. Speak your name, share your memories, ask for that visit. And if no one shows up, keep the light on. Because you never know when the knock might finally come. And when it does, let them know you're still you. You try to stay strong. You nod politely in the hallway. You say good morning at breakfast. You smile when the nurse asks how you're doing. But deep down, something heavy lingers in the chest. Something you don't quite have words for. It's not about your own pain, it's the pain around you. The friend who used to laugh at dinner but now stares quietly at their plate. The woman down the hall who stopped getting out of bed. The empty chair at bingo where someone used to sit just last week. Doctors have observed that one of the hidden burdens in nursing homes isn't just physical aging, it's emotional exposure. Day after day, you witness the slow decline of others. People you grow close to, people you come to care about. And yet, there's no real space to grieve. No safe place to say, that shook me, or I feel afraid now. So instead, many seniors carry the sorrow alone. They push it down. They say, I'm fine. But their hearts feel a little heavier each time. Researchers call this silent grief. And it's more common than most realize. It creeps in quietly. You don't always notice it at first. But over time, the small emotional wounds begin to add up. And when you're not allowed, or don't feel safe, to talk about them, those feelings settle like stones in the spirit. One by one, experts explain that this kind of emotional load, when unspoken, can take a toll on both mental and physical health. It can cause sleep disturbances, muscle tension, low appetite, even depression. And for many older adults, it also leads to something more subtle, a growing sense of helplessness, a shrinking of emotional space, a quiet fear that you too will be next. This is why it's so important to have open, honest conversations in care homes. Not just about blood pressure or medication times, but about loss, fear, and change. About the hard things. Because pretending everything's okay when it's not doesn't protect the heart, it isolates it. Many residents admit they don't want to be seen as negative. They don't want to bring others down. But holding all that sadness inside doesn't keep anyone afloat. It just makes you feel more alone. And doctors emphasize this. Unexpressed emotions don't disappear. They find other ways to surface, through irritability, fatigue, or simply feeling numb. If you've ever looked around and felt overwhelmed by what you see, if you've ever watched someone fade and thought, that could be me, know that you are not the only one feeling this way. In fact, you may be one of the few brave enough to notice. And that's not weakness. That's awareness. That's empathy. That's still having a heart that feels. Experts recommend something simple but powerful. Talk. Not in passing, not vaguely, but honestly. Find a staff member you trust. Ask if the facility offers grief circles or emotional check-ins. Write your feelings in a journal. Even if no one reads it, your soul will know you let something out. And if a friend confides in you, listen. Don't rush to change the subject. Let the silence breathe. Sometimes just saying, "me too," can be the beginning of healing. It's also okay to cry. To feel a lump in your throat when someone doesn't. Come back to the dining hall. That's not weakness, that's love showing itself. The truth is, in environments where loss is present, grief becomes part of life. But that doesn't mean you have to go through it silently. Doctors say naming grief reduces its grip. It allows the brain to process the emotions rather than suppress them. And for seniors, who may have already lived through many losses, each new one can stir up the old. That's natural, that's human, that's why speaking it matters. You are not too old to feel deeply. You are not too old to need comfort. You are not too old to deserve a safe space for sorrow. So if your heart feels heavy from what you've seen, from who you've lost, don't keep it locked away. Let it out. bit by bit, with someone kind, with someone who listens, with yourself, because grief that is carried silently doesn't make you stronger. It just makes you tired. But grief that is spoken, shared, honored, that kind of grief leads to peace, to understanding, to strength that doesn't come from ignoring pain, but from facing it with courage. And you, dear viewer, have that courage. Keep your heart open. Let your feelings speak. You've seen so much. You've endured so much. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to heal. And you're not alone. You don't always know what you're leaving until it's gone. For many seniors, the decision to move into a nursing home feels practical, maybe even necessary. Health changes, the stairs become too much. Family worries, so you pack a few bags, a photo or two, maybe your favorite blanket. And you tell yourself, it's just a place to stay. But what doctors and counselors have observed is something deeper, something that doesn't hit until weeks, sometimes months, after the move. That place you left wasn't just walls and windows. It was your rhythm, your refuge. It was the sound of your own kettle in the morning, the view from your favorite chair, the exact creak of the hallway floorboards. It was your life. Experts explain that what many older adults experience after moving isn't just adjustment. It's a quiet kind of grief, not for people but for place, because home isn't just where you sleep. It's where your soul rests. It's the smell of your old quilt in the winter, the way light falls on your kitchen counter, the garden you planted, or the door you opened for guests year after year. And when that disappears, even for good reason, something in the heart can feel lost, disoriented, unanchored. Researchers studying the emotional transition to nursing facilities found that one of the most common regrets among seniors is not realizing how deeply rooted they were in the environment of home, that it wasn't about luxury or square footage. It was about meaning, about memory, about control. Because in a home, you set the rhythm. You open the window when you want. You eat when you're hungry. You walk where your feet want to go. But in many care settings, even kind ones, those rhythms are replaced by schedules, shift changes, and routines that weren't made for your heart. They were made for management. Doctors emphasize that this loss of personal environment can subtly affect everything, from appetite to sleep to mood. When the brain no longer receives familiar signals, the smells, the timing, the visual anchors, it has to work harder to feel safe. And for older adults, that extra effort can feel exhausting, even disorienting. It's why many seniors in nursing homes feel tired but restless, calm but deeply sad. They can't quite put their finger on it, but what they're missing is moment. Experts say that this realization, that home was more than shelter, often comes with emotional weight. Some feel guilt, some feel resentment, but most feel something even harder to name, a longing. Not for material things, but for a sense of being home in yourself. So if you're watching this and you're still in your home, cherish it. Look around, smell the pillowcase, listen to the sounds outside your window. These aren't small things, these are part of your health, your identity, your grounding. If you must leave someday, know that grieving that space is human, not selfish. And if you've already moved into a care facility and find yourself missing what used to be, that doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you real. You're allowed to remember. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to recreate pieces of home even in a new room. Experts suggest bringing sensory anchors with you. Your own soap, your music, your lamp, your spices. Anything that tells your brain, I'm still me, I still belong. It helps. Slowly, over time, these become touch points of comfort. But even more importantly, talk about it. Let someone know that you're not just adjusting to new walls. You're missing the old ones. You're not just moving your things. You're letting go of chapters. That kind of grief deserves to be named and honored. Because the truth is, home is never just about bricks. It's about being seen. It's where your footsteps belonged, where your voice echoed, where your story was held without needing explanation. And while you may not return to the same place again, That feeling of home, of being grounded, safe, and known, is something you can rebuild. Slowly, with intention, with people who care, with moments that matter. Doctors say emotional grounding is one of the most protective factors for senior health. It lowers stress, improves digestion, balances mood, even supports immunity. That grounding often begins with familiarity and with dignity. So if you've lost that sense of home, don't give up on finding it again. Build it wherever you are, through scent, through music, through routine, through relationships. Speak up when you need something. Ask for small comforts. They are not luxuries, they are healing. You still deserve a life that feels like yours. You still deserve beauty, memory, warmth, and rhythm. You are not too old for comfort. You are not too late for joy. You deserve a place and a life that feels like home. And that can begin again today.